Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined. Artlist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Welcome. I know that time reset by accident. I was waiting for it to not reset, and it didn't do that. It did not do that. But hello, everybody. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day today. We are live in Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, and we're in the new YouTube channel. I'm not muted, Warlock. I wasn't close to being muted. I looked and I saw that my roadcaster was muted. But we shall see. We shall see what happens. But hello, everybody. So excited to be here today. Today we are gonna be talking about Sarah Boone, and hopefully you guys know a little bit about Sarah Boone, or I would hope that you guys do. Sarah Boone, by the way, is an individual female from Florida. She, let me just move here. She was the individual who ended up killing her boyfriend at the time. So in case you guys don't know much of the story, this is a summary of what you need to know. She said that she and her boyfriend were drinking, and they drank like 2 huge bottles of wine, and then she said that, and her testimony changed. It has changed a lot. It has changed from when she first talked to the police. When she first talked to the police, she said that she fell asleep and they were playing hide and seek, and the boyfriend decided to hide inside a suitcase, which, by the way, didn't really have like a way to really zip it very well. So they used a paper clip for that because he had broken off. So the zipper didn't really have that little pull item to pull it and then close it. So she had to use a zipper to do that. And she said that they had done that, and that she thought that he was gonna be well enough to get out of the suitcase, even though he was heavily intoxicated. And while he was in the suitcase, she grabbed the bat and she hit him while he was inside the suitcase, this poor man. I think the testimony came in that he was something like, I think it was something like 80, 90 pounds, something ridiculous low, and just very, very unsafe anyway. So she did that, and she said, I kind of like opened up the suitcase just a little bit, enough so he could get his hand out, and then she went to sleep. And then when she, quote, woke up, like around probably like 12:30-ish, 1 p.m.-ish the next day, she realized that he was still in the suitcase. And she opened up the suitcase and she realized that her boyfriend was now deceased. And it was at that time that she knew she fucked up. She instead of calling the police right away, what she ended up doing is she called her ex-husband and said, "Oh my God, what do I do? He's dead. I don't know exactly what's gonna happen." Her ex-husband told her, "Call the cops. I'll be on my way." And did Sarah Boone call the cops? No, she did not. She did not call the cops at all. She did not call the cops. She instead just waited around. And then once her ex-husband arrived at the residence, because it was apparently Sarah's turn to pick up her kids, and that's why they had the communication part between her ex-husband and her that day. Then her husband told her again to call the police. So then she called the police, and the police came, and she gave the story that, I fell asleep. This was not intentional. Again, keyword on the word, like, not intentional. This is not what I wanted to do. This is not what happened. I have no idea what happened. I just went ahead and, fell asleep. I thought that he was going to get out. And at the trial, her testimony changed completely to it was intentional. So now they're saying oh yeah, and that's the other thing, Tommy Doyle. She said at trial that she was hangover and she was drunk still, when she was being interviewed by the police. So, and it was so funny because when she made that statement, the prosecutor like lost it, and he's like, that's not part of her defense, this is bullshit, you can't just now bring up the fact that she's intoxicated while she's being questioned by the police. And her own attorney said, Judge, I did not expect her to say that, please strike that from the record. And I was laughing so hard when the attorney said that, because sometimes things like that happen in trials. You don't really know what to expect, what somebody's gonna say. The question is always like, never ask a question that you don't know the answer to, and this is true. And I'm sure he knew the question, he knew the answer he wanted, but Sarah Boone just had to sneak it in there. Well, I was hungover, I was still drunk when I was talking to the police. But again, they played the entire clip of her interrogation, all 3 hours of it, by the way. She did not appear drunk at all. She came with a notebook with questions for the police. She came there willingly. She said, I have questions about this. I have questions about the autopsy. I have questions about like what you're doing. And Joy, that's either a very small man or a very big suitcase. He was a tiny, tiny man. Like I said before, I think like they said he was like 80 or 90 pounds. Like, I don't think you guys have realized how tiny and how horrible, like skeletal he was, right? Because again, like it sounded like they were doing drugs. They were alcoholics. They both of them had issues, right? So that's exactly what happened. So at the testimony, she changes her mind. She says that now it is intentional. She put him in the suitcase and she didn't let him out intentionally because, according to her, she suffered battered syndrome. Yeah, so the entire testimony and her entire story now hinges on her being a battered spouse. She's a victim of domestic violence, according to her. She put up a lot of pictures about her blue eyes and the bruises she got, and the fights where she called the cops on him. But like one of the things that also they kind of brought up and they kind of mentioned is that she also beat him up too. So it was like mutually they were mutually beating up each other, right? But her entire thing was that it was battered spouse syndrome. She said that she was beaten up. She left him in the suitcase because, according to her, she knew that once he got to the second bottle, he became violent, and that she would have been at risk. Her life was in danger at that point, which, by the way, did not happen. So when you look at self-defense and when you look at using that as a defense for murder, you have to find a reason that kind of would bring that in, right? You need an action. You need something that happens that makes you afraid for your life, right? That's the entire purpose of self-defense. And many states have different requirements for meeting that self-defense option, right? Like some states, for example, you have to run away first. Not all states do that, but some states do. Minnesota, for example, you have to flee before you kill somebody. They don't have stand your ground. For example, in Wisconsin, you don't have the requirement to flee. But if you guys remember the River stabbing murder, that was not a requirement, but the jury ate that up so much. When you see the video and when you saw him standing there with the knife, the jury, when the jury was interviewed, the jury said he could have just turned around and left. He could have de-escalated, right? So it's really interesting because when it comes to a jury, you never know what's going to happen. It is very unpredictable. Sometimes the jury only listen to part of the instructions, or they do the best to interpret the instructions that they're given, right? So that is definitely part of it. But in this case, again, she just didn't prove there was that one element that made her afraid for her life. There was no element. Again, the dude was inside a suitcase that was really hard to open up. Even at trial, they had a really hard time opening up this suitcase, right? So the prosecutor tried it. He had the hardest time doing it. Sarah Boone tried it. She also had a hard time doing it. So you can't tell me that this scrawny little man inside a suitcase could have gotten out of it because she left this much open so that his hand could go in, and then somehow he could have like had enough force at that angle, had enough force at the angle to pull it. I don't think so. But that's definitely to what the jury came back with. And a few hours after the closing statements were done, the jury came back with a second-degree murder charge. So what does that mean when it comes to second-degree murder charge in Florida? So according to Florida statutes, right, you can get, when it comes to sentencing for a second-degree murder charge, you can get up to life, right? So again, so it occurs, second degree you have when you lack premeditation, you lack planning, and defendant acted in a way that caused the victim to die. Could the prosecutors have gone for first degree charge? Maybe, but again, at that point, her entire thing was that she was not aware, she didn't know, and she was not intentional. It was not only until a week and a half before the trial that she changed her mind, and now she says that she was intentional. But for second degree murder, again, the minimum sentence is 16 years, which includes 3/4 of it in prison. So about like 12 years in prison, could be 12 years in prison and the rest on parole, right? Or it could be a maximum, or it could be maximum of 25 years. So it looks to see, we have to see exactly what happens with Sarah Boone. It should be quite interesting to see what happens, and we can go straight to it. I think right now they are just talking and they're waiting around to see what happens. So let me transition to the court live as they're going on. Let me put my headphones so I can understand this and hear this. All right. I know there is no sound right now, so if you're wondering why you can't hear anything, it's because right now there is no sound. So we're just looking inside the courthouse right now. There is a Sarah Boone. She's no longer wearing her pretty suit, as we can see. That was also very interesting because before trial, there were a lot of motions that she requested. She requested to look presentable, which that makes sense. She requested the suits that she was gonna wear, which that makes sense. But she also requested, in case you guys don't know, she requested a hairstylist and a makeup artist to do her makeup and her hair. So that was absolutely hilarious. The judge said no, you cannot have a hairstylist, and the judge also did say, let me move this, maybe make this a little bit bigger. Give me a second. And the judge did also say that oh my god, I can't believe she's smiling. The audacity, the fact that she's smiling. The judge said that they would provide her makeup, but she herself would have to put it on in a manner where she would be prepared to be in court, which she was really upset about. For sure. Let's see. Let me look to see here. Add as a moderator. Okay. All right. I think So I made Crescent and Smooth moderators. I see them in chat. Wait, didn't work? Did it work? No, yeah, it did work. Okay. What does she look so at ease? I don't know. I have so many questions about the fact of what she is doing. Is absolutely crazy. Let me change this. You, but why? I have no idea. I have no idea. It's absolutely crazy that she just thinks it's completely okay to do that. You're 15 minutes of fame. And that's also the really hilarious part. I wish I had created this YouTube channel when she was sending those letters, because I kept reading them. And I think I kept sending them to the Wednesday After Dark for folks. So Erudai, Moss, JT, and Chrysanth. And I was laughing at it because part of the things that she kept saying just made absolutely no sense. And one of the things, oh God, that it was just, it was absolutely bananas. I'm just trying to figure out what they're looking at. Like she just seems way too much at ease for the fact that she's probably gonna be sentenced to the maximum prison. So definitely part of what the charges were that she was convicted on was that her actions caused somebody to die. So the assumption is that her act, when she went upstairs and left them inside the suitcase, she was very well aware that he was going to die, right? So that depravity came into play. Your ear is covered, so any tech issues are not on me. Well, right now there is no sound coming from the stream, so that's probably because the judge is not there yet. As soon as the judge does come in, I'm sure we will have some sound to talk about it. But let me change. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this. Let me do. Where is? Here we go. This one. Okay. All right. Let's do it like this. Let me do live chat. There you go. Sometimes there is a difference, but there you go. Let me know if you prefer this one or the other one. We can have this one up. Because yes, I use dark mode. I don't like light mode at all. So we here have his family members waiting there. Those are his family members. It's not really that hard to ride a bike. Don't remind me that Chrysanth can't ride a bike. Oh, we will have her riding bikes. It's gonna be. It'll probably be fine. She'll be fine. If anything, she just falls off the bike. It's a couple of bruises, breaks her arm. Not a big deal. She's Italian. Oh my God, Warlock. I also like the fact that every single hearing, Sarah Boone always has something in front of her, and she just pretends to read things, pretends to be busy, pretends to be doing things, and she always looks like she just doesn't care at all about what is going on. So that is always really annoying to me, because it really does show that she just doesn't care about what happened at all. I just don't understand it, but um but it looks like she just doesn't even have any type of regrets at all for what happened to Jorge Torres at all. It's absolutely insane. uh Hey, Dreaming Tabitha, how are you? Much love to you, Tabitha. I will be, by the way, doing a gingerbread house on Wednesday, December 4th with Tabitha. I'm excited. I'm so excited. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Let's see. Brian C. Is the sentencing where they actually decide the punishment after they decide guilty or not guilty? Yes, so the sentencing hearings usually comes with testimony that talks about the impact of her actions, and the judge might be able to then decide what her sentence will be after listening to impact statements. But they also might just wait. So it's really hard to say exactly what this judge will do. I have a feeling he will rule from the bench, but it's really hard to say exactly what's going to happen. And of course, Sarah Boone's lawyers can always appeal. I know that they took this case pro bono. It was interesting because when they first grabbed her as a client, they got asked the question, "Are you pro bono?" And they said no. They said at the beginning they were not pro bono. And then the prosecutor was like, "What the fuck then? How do you expect this woman who can't hire a lawyer on her own, who has no income, to pay you and your law firm for this?" And then the attorney that's sitting right next to her said, "Well, I mean, she said that she's gonna pay us in the future." And the judge did not like it at all. He was not letting him have it. And then he's like, "Well, I don't know, it's like also pro bono." And then the judge is like, "Make up your mind, dude." Like, the rule number one, when you are going to be retained by a client, is you have to be very specific up front about what your fees are and what you're representing them for. You have to be super specific about that. Very, very specific about that. And they did not have that clarity at all from the beginning. It wasn't until the next hearing, because yes, I watched all of them. I watched all the hearings. The next hearing that he said, "Oh no, now we're pro bono," and the prosecutor said, like, "What is it then?" And this is why the day of the first trial, so first day of the trial, the prosecutor made a motion and said they thought the attorneys were forcing Sarah Boone to go to trial. And the reasoning for that is they said that, because of the amount of hours that the defense had billed, they were sent to make a huge amount of money. And the prosecutor offered Sarah Boone a really good deal, which I don't know if they're actually going to make, let's see, rejected plea agreement. Let me find exactly what the plea was. So on October 7th, Boone rejected a plea deal that would have sent her to prison for 15 years. But then she only would have served, I believe, 6 years of that. And then would have gone to parole. That was a really good plea deal to have. This was right before the hurricane hit Florida. And the prosecutor said there is no way a reasonable, sane person would have rejected that plea deal. So then the judge then took testimony and asked Sarah Boone if she was aware of the deal, if she understood the consequences, of rejecting the plea deal. He asked her if she was forced to reject the plea deal, and all of that. And Sarah Boone then said, "No, I was not forced. I don't want the plea deal." And it wasn't until the trial was over, during the interviews, that the defense said, "Hey, we thought it was a good deal But Sarah Boone did not take it because, as Smooth said, she saw no wrong. She saw no wrong with what she did. And part of the crazy letters that she has sent the judge and the reasons why she always ended up firing the attorneys that she had and the attorneys quit was because in her own letter she said, they don't think I'm innocent. They think I'm guilty. It's like, really? Like, there is a video. There's a video of you taunting him while he is in the suitcase. While he is in the suitcase. So and these are videos that she recorded, which she had no memory of because I guess she blacked out because she was so drunk. So in the videos that she herself recorded, she's taunting him. And he's like saying, please, let me out. I can't breathe. I'm having troubles. Please just, like, get me out of here. And her answers with, like, no, it's not my problem. That's your problem. If you can't breathe, that's your problem. It's like, actually, honey, it's your problem, too. It's definitely your problem as well. As we can see, and she was convicted. So a really big problem that, was going on was that, again, she did not think she did anything wrong at all. She always maintained that she thought she was innocent, no matter what. She always maintained that. And then you might wonder why she has a little belt around. I think she is handcuffed, so you can kind of see that the way that she's moving, she doesn't have a full range of her hands. And I think that's why she is handcuffed. If you can see, it just really looks like she's handcuffed. Yep, there you go. You see the handcuffs right there. And the handcuffs are probably tied to the belt around her. Because again, they have to transport her from the prison to the court and then back. Warlock says, yeah, so it's safe to enter the suitcase, Erudio. Tabitha will definitely let you out. Well, this should be quite interesting. I'm really wondering exactly what is going to happen here. Maybe we can start a poll and see. Let me look. Let me go to view your channel. Okay, there we go. All right, let's start a poll. Okay. Let's see. What will her sentencing be? Okay, so we can do the first one be 15 years, which was the plea deal, rejected plea. We could go 25 years. Maybe we can do... All right. 15 years, rejected plea, we'll say 10 years. And then less than 10. I mean, she's not getting less than 10 years. But there you go. We are starting a poll. You guys can vote in the poll and let me know what you think her sentencing is going to be. Well, Alexis, I have an idea for Chaco. We should talk after the stream. Is your idea to put Erudio in a suitcase, Warlock? Because I have a feeling that is your idea. Let's face it. Yeah. For sure. I personally hope that she gets life because of the fact that she rejected 15 years. But I can see it going either way for sure. I can see it going either way. Rita just says no. Please, no. I'm not gonna put you in the suitcase. I think you are okay to go. You're okay. I don't know. I'm gonna find a suitcase that would fit your ego in there. She was found to be competent. Oh, you think that she walks? You think that they will say whatever you served, whatever prison time already served, and then now you can go on parole? Is that what you think, Nosaku? That's what you think. Then definitely go then less than 10 years. I think she's close to getting to the 5-year mark in terms of how much time she has been in prison. Aiden says, I think 25 for her being such a bitch about her still claiming innocence. Shadowborn says the fact that she refused the deal, they throw the book at her for making the jury suffer through this. It's possible. It is very possible. The trial was really, really fast, I have to say. When coming to trials, in terms of how fast it was, other than the fact that it had so many emotions, and it even had a deposition in between the trial that was pretty intense, was really, really fast. Well, the jury already convicted her, so the sentencing now is up to the judge. So the judge will sentence her, I believe. $15. Oh my god. I am going to hit you. Yeah, this is just the sentencing. That is accurate. This is just the sentencing. The jury already convicted her on second-degree murder, which is definitely because of her assertions before that it was an accident, that she didn't know she went to sleep. I agree, Smoo. I mean, clearly she doesn't care. She was laughing and just playing around, in the amount of disregard for human life is absolutely crazy. Oh god, I did say 15 years. 15. But we shall see exactly what happens. It should be interesting to see. Let's see what other interesting facts I can give you. Yeah, so she was convicted on October 25th of 2024. So not too long ago. Christina says the entire trial she was so carefree, like she was not on trial. That is very accurate. The entire trial she was smiling, she was laughing, she was taking notes, she was doodling, really not paying much attention. And when she went ahead and she testified, because she did testify on her own behalf, she just didn't regret it. She was not emotional at all about the fact that her boyfriend, Jorge Torres, died. She didn't seem to be affected by it in any way, shape, or form. It was more like she was just concerned for her own self. She was not crying. She never said that she was sorry about it. She never said it was an accident. She basically, her entire story at that point was that she was the victim and she herself was going to die because of it.
Thank you.
Okay, the judge is now here. I agree. She's not aware of the gravity of everything. Hello, Hypnotic. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for following. Exactly, Shadow Warning. She's definitely showing that she is a sociopath. She didn't regret it. She never once said that she was sorry. She never once apologized for it. She never once looked at the children of Jorge Torres and said, I'm sorry about this. And you know what she did? The day that he died, he had him call his kids, kind of like saying goodbye. I'm not saying it was premeditated at that point, but she just very clearly didn't really care at all. So now we're going to see Judge Kranek, and he will be deciding. I do believe she thinks she is the MC of this world for sure. But so far, Judge Kranek has been very fair. He gave her 8 opportunities to have attorneys.
Yeah, okay, so.
Calling State of Florida versus Sarah Boone, 2020 CF 2603, State.
Dean Cacciatore on behalf of the state.
Defense.
William J. for the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Sarah Boone.
Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table. Ma'am, if you could please raise your right hand, Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Ma'am, can you state your full name and date of birth for the record for us?
Sarah Boone, 10-10-77.
We are here for a sentencing. The jury returned a verdict on October 25, finding you, Ms. Boone, guilty of murder in the second degree. We are running a little bit late this afternoon. I apologize for that. I was in court all morning and took the opportunity to review all of your submittals from earlier this morning, Mr. Owens, including the victim or the character statements, the psychological evaluation by Dr. Harper, the motion for downward departure, the motion for new trial, and the state's response to same. Before we proceed with any sentencing in this matter, the court needs to address the defendant's motion for new trial and the state's response to the defendant's motion for new trial. Anything in addition you'd like to argue at this time, Mr. Owens, over and above what is contained in your motion, sir?
No, sir.
State.
No, sir.
All right. After reviewing the motion and the state's response to same, the defendant's motion for a new trial is denied. Based on the court's review of the record, the court's participation in the trial, and the review of all the evidence, and the court's prior findings and rulings at trial and prior thereto.
I will talk about
With that,
this part after
I believe
he's
that
done.
we're prepared to proceed with sentencing at this time. The court has reviewed the pre-sentencing investigation prepared by the Department of Corrections. Are there any housekeeping matters that we need to address, Mr. J. or Mr. Cacciatore, before we proceed?
Not from the state.
Are there any housekeeping matters from your side of the ledger, sir, that we need to address, Mr. Owens?
Judge,
Like I
do
said,
have,
Judge Kranek has been very fair. More fair than most judges, in my opinion.
We've got Dr. Harper here to testify. Of course, my client's going to testify, but one of the 4 lay witnesses wants to appear by Zoom. She lives up in Minnesota. I don't know if that's allowed.
We don't have an objection to that. One of our witnesses will be providing an impact statement, would also like to appear on the court's virtual link as well.
Okay, so stipulated. If you need it, just let Anita know, and I can submit. I can have her email it to you right now. The link.
We do have the link. She's waiting to get on, I guess.
Who might it be, sir? Several people.
It should be Lana Albert.
She is here, sir. She's in the. She's viewing. Her camera's off, and she's microphone is muted, but she's in the lobby.
Okay.
All right. With that, state, you may proceed.
Your Honor, at this time, we would like to take an impact statement from, I believe, Anna Torres, which you will be appearing virtually.
Possibly a feline
I see
named
several
JJ.
guests, but I do not see a Anna Torres in the virtual lobby, sir?
Well, I think while maybe she's having some issue logging on, we have also in-person witnesses.
We can proceed with those first, sir.
Call Juan Torres.
They really don't smooth. Some courts are better equipped for better sound setups, but not all courts do. And you have to keep in mind most courts are really, really old. And to get better sound systems, you would have to either put them at the top and just redo the ceiling,
Please.
or install different things around them.
Swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Blanca Torres.
Okay. Ma'am, you can go ahead.
I just want to tell Sarah Boone that I don't hate her for what she did.
Well, you can really feel the
I
emotion
always
in her
remember
voice.
That evening, when that lady came into my door and she knocked at the door, and she asked for my name. I said, I tell her my name, and then she said, "Can I come in?" I said, "Okay, yes." And she told me to sit down. I never think that was gonna be my son. And then she said my son was dead.
Oh, that's so sad.
Since that day, I can't sleep. It's hard for me to remember that moment. My son is not here no more. She don't only kill my son, she killed a father, a brother, an uncle. It's been hard. I'm a family because all the brothers, they will always work together. But now it's like something real. Love is missing. Sometimes when I look out the window, I'm waiting for him to come and say, "Mom, I love you." She was always there. She
Yeah,
come and
impact
call me.
statements
I miss
always
that
very,
moment.
very emotional, Chrisanne. We'll
The
talk
last
more about
time
it
that I
after.
talked to him was at 12 o'clock in January, New Year. He came to my bed and said, "Mom," he woke me up and I said, "Mom, I love you. Happy New Year." And since that day, I don't see him no more. He was my son. I love him. And I miss him a lot. My family miss him a lot too. But I don't hear her. But you know what? I was blessed. She ain't gonna be blessed like me because I have my son. I raised him. I have his children, my granddaughter, my grandson, and she don't gonna be able to have that. And I did. I raised him. He wasn't perfect, but he was a good son. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. State anything further from this witness?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, sir.
Thank you.
And that was Jorge Torres' mom. Obviously, impact statements always do provide something that generally is not admissible in the hearing. It provides a full picture
You may call your
of
next
the events that
victim impact
happened.
statement.
And it gives opportunity for the family to find closure as well, which usually helps them as well too. Whether or not they actually have an effect in sentencing, that's always to be debated.
I do.
Ma'am, could you state and spell your name for the record for us, please?
Victoria Torres. My name is Victoria Torres. George is my brother.
Yeah, Jorge Torres has 2 children.
Unfortunately, my family has experienced 2 horrifying tragedies.
Had 2 children.
I just want to make it clear that George deserves justice. As far as my other brother,
Thank you, Heath
Yes,
Nation, for the 25 bits
the rock
over
in jail.
at Twitch.
Sarah has caused a lifetime of pain, a lifetime of horrible images, a lifetime of hearing my brother George plead for his life. This is just this moment for all of you. For me and my family, it's forever. Such a simple thing as using a suitcase is so triggering. I try not to close it all the way. I leave at least like 2 or 3 inches for the zipper. And it might sound crazy, but it just helps me. She really has flipped my family's life upside down. And I just hope that we can truly get justice for my brother. And I just want to tell the team thank you so much for everything they did. Thank you.
Thank you. State anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No.
Thank you.
It's absolutely so sad what they have to go through because they lost their son, their brother. 2 kids lost their father, and the kids are really, really small. So I don't think we're gonna
Do not
hear from the
see
kids.
an Anna Torres in the lobby, sir. I have lots of guests, HHSA, Mr. Beck, Lana Albert, Jason Gunn.
And thank you for the idea. I will make the changes. I didn't have time to make any changes to sound, so they're all default. But I love the idea for making those changes to, based on the stream that I'm making.
Your Honor, is there a cap to the link as to the number of individuals?
Not to my knowledge.
Could we just have just a moment?
Yes.
All right. Well, while he's doing that, I can talk a little bit about impact statements. So, generally during sentencing, they do have impact statements. That would mean you have people speaking on behalf of the prosecution, and then have people speaking on behalf of the defense. And the purpose of that is to allow an individual, doesn't necessarily have to be a victim, to describe to the court the situation and the background, to help say this is why you should give this person leniency, or this is why you need to throw the book at them, right? So it provides information that generally doesn't come up at trial, right? Because a lot of the stuff would be hearsay, or it might be character evidence, or for example, so it doesn't come up at trial generally. But it does provide more information about the damage and the impact and the effects that that the behavior, had. So in this situation, the murder of Jorge Torres, the impact that it had on his family as well. I think he's still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And also, likewise, I'm just going to mute the stream for a little bit right now. It also gives an opportunity for folks to confront the offender. So it gives an opportunity and a voice to victims to say, this is how you affected me when I was the victim, when you did something to me. And the impact statements can be either done verbally or they can be done in writing. Right now, it sounds like everybody is testifying, so we don't have something in writing as well. And but that doesn't mean that the victim can just go on, or the individual can just go on and then say whatever it is they want. There are limitations on what impact statements can say as well. For example, things that might go under them would be the description of the attack, of what happened, any type of financial costs if you're requiring restitution, medical or psychological treatments that you had to go, for example. Some courts allow folks to give their opinions on what happened. Most courts do not. So it just really depends on the state that I would allow that or not, as well. And sometimes impact statements have an opinion on what they think the sentence should be. But again, that really depends on the state and what is allowed for the impact statements, for sure. They're not really required. Victims are not really required to offer an impact statement, but they usually do. They have their family members do that as well. Because again, it helps paint the entire picture that was not portrayed at trial. Because in here we're talking about the emotions, what happened, the background, how people are affected, to kind of say like, this is what she did. She took away a father of two very small children, right? He took them away from their kids. And yeah, vulgarity would be a no, correct? Yeah. And some other, so for the defense side, they might have information about, this is the first offense, they have never done this, they're a good person, they really regret this, give them another chance. Oh, he's talking.
Given the fact that the victim's daughter is having difficulties with...
Is that her, Anna Victoria Torres?
Oh my
Yes,
God.
sir.
All right.
Is that it? Is that who it is? All right, ma'am, good afternoon. Can you hear us?
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
Okay, could you please state
Okay, this
and
is
spell
one of
your
the
name for
daughters,
record?
but she is not a
My name
kid.
is Anna Victoria Torres, ANAVICTORIA TORRES.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I understand that you'd like to provide a statement to the court at this time. You may proceed.
Okay. Okay. So I'll be speaking for myself and my two siblings. The murder of our father has impacted us on so many levels and in different ways. I myself, for the first year, would wake up screaming every morning or night, wishing I was having a nightmare, only to wake up to remember all over again that my father is gone and I'll never be able to hear him say he loves me ever again. To know my siblings have been affected in such a way that they are now different. They have had a piece of their heart ripped away from them, all while her son gets to hear his mother's voice and see her alive is pathetic. Because of you, Sarah, my sister is heartbroken. Because of you, Sarah, my brother is left wondering when he will ever see his father again. The loss of my father has left me with chronic depression and anxiety. Seeing any moments of fatherly love or kindness being shown between others in real life or even on TV leaves me in complete shambles. Seeking therapy was a must in order to navigate through my workday without a random breakdown. Thoughts of my father's demise still enter my mind ever so often. I'm left either angry, sad, or sick to my stomach to think of how his final moments were. George Torres, my incredible father. Not only was he my father, but my best friend. My personal comic provided me with wisdom and knowledge, creative and loving dad, an older brother, an uncle, a cousin, a friend, a son, and above all, our father. He was human and deserved to be treated as such. My father, George Torres, was one of a kind, an absolute gem. Unfortunately, his light was dimmed on earth by evilness, but with us, we will forever make his name live on. Especially Sarah, I pray that you see his face when you see him at night. That is it.
Thank you. Anything further, State?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further of this witness?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. State,
Thank you.
anything further?
No other impact statements, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any other witnesses or evidence at this point in time, State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Owens, you may proceed, sir.
Ms. Diane Smith. Judge, what do you want?
I have no issue with her being at the podium. If you want to move about the well to conduct your examination, that's fine, Counselor. Ma'am, come on up. Come on up to this podium right here, ma'am. If you could, raise your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Ma'am, could you state and spell your name for the record for us, please?
Diane Smith, D-I-A-N-E-S-M-I-T-H.
Okay, thank you very much. Counselor, you may inquire.
And Ms. Smith, tell the court a little bit about you.
I was a chaplain at the 33rd Street Jail for 30 years.
And have you been a chaplain at the jail here in Orange County?
Yes, Orange County Jail.
Really? They're having the
For 30
chaplain from the
years.
jail come in?
And during that period of time, did you have occasion to meet with Sarah Boone?
I did.
And was it over the course of how long?
I've known her 4 years.
And if you could, tell the court what you'd like to say.
Okay. Well, I first met Sarah. She came in. We have a Christian dorm, and Sarah enrolled in our Christian program. And she was in my classes for a year. And she was very sincere in her efforts to change her life and to be a better person. And I found her very helpful. She was kind and good to people. She loved to serve. And she helped the new girls that would come in, the younger girls. She would mother them and be very kind and very helpful. And then after she graduated from the program, I was her counselor for the other 3 years. And I always found her, very sincere and, trying to do better. I spoke with many inmates that knew her and was associated with her. And they spoke very highly of her and said that, she was helpful and kind and tried to help other people. And I just found her.
It's not
to
like
be,
she's being sentenced to
very
die.
sincere and trying
I-
to be a very good person and change. And
Very
help
good
people.
person? I don't think so.
Was the Bible involved at all?
Oh yes, it was all spiritual. That's our. Yes, it was spiritual growth plus character growth and character, trying to just be a better person in general. She liked to serve other people. She would help the girls wash their clothes and show them around and teach. But spiritually, she grew very, very great spiritually.
Thank you.
Hang on, ma'am, just 1 second.
Ma'am?
Hang on just 1 second, Ms. Smith. State, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
I'd like to call Christina Pena.
They had the chaplain come in from the jail to say that she has experienced spiritual growth and she's a changed woman.
Ma'am, come on up if you can. Raise your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Ma'am, if you could state and spell your name for the record for us.
Christina Pena, Christina, Pena.
All right, you may inquire, sir.
Ms. Pena, how old are you?
31,
And where do you live?
Orlando.
Now, it's my understanding, Ms. Pena, that you were in the county jail with Sarah Boone.
Yes.
How long were y'all in the same cell together?
Yes, I was in there for 4 years, but we were together for 3.
Okay. And I understand ultimately the charges against you were dismissed?
Yes.
And so you were released on what day?
April 4th this year.
2024?
2023.
2023. So you've been out for a pretty while.
I've been out for like 6 or so months now. Yeah, since April
Okay.
of this year, actually. Sorry.
April of 2024. And you said y'all were bunkmates there together for about 3 years?
Yeah.
I would assume that y'all got to know each other pretty well.
We did.
Okay. And if you could, if you'd like to speak on her behalf to the judge.
Yes. Sarah's one of my best friends, my only.
You take your time.
She's helped me with a lot. Spiritually and like growing, and she helps everybody. She's always, I don't know, spirit. She helped me a lot, and she would come to me. She talked to me all the time and pick me up when I was down, or if I didn't know something. She's good. I don't know. She was a good person to me. Mistakes happen. She always helped. She always helped people. She was always helping everybody in the dorm.
It's crazy. She
even,
just
like,
said mistakes
her
happen.
artwork, she did art. If anybody needed any help or needed anything, they'd come to her and she'd help them. And even if they, did wrong to her, she would still go back and help them and praise with them and pray over them and everything. It's just.
And was she a little bit older than you?
Yeah.
How much older was she?
40 in her 40s.
Did you think of her as maybe an aunt or a big sister?
Big sister, yeah. She was like a big sister. Like a sister I never had. Because I have brothers, so I never, we clicked right away. I don't know. We'd be walking out in the backyard, and she just would always try and talk to me, but I'm a quiet person, and I don't trust a lot of people. So for me to open up and trust somebody, it's a lot. So.
And obviously y'all were there under difficult circumstances. Did she assist you in getting through that?
Yes, and she helped me a lot with my my case, and I would help her with with hers too. We're both. Justice is not what it is. I don't know how.
Bless you.
We both helped each other out. I don't know.
Ms. Danielle, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any questions, State?
No, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, ma'am. I appreciate you.
Ms. Hill? Judge.
Yes, sir.
After Ms. Hill, I want to take Ms. Howard, please.
Yes, sir.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Ma'am, good afternoon. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
My name is Mariela Hill, M-A-R-I-E-L-A, last name Hill, H-I-L-L.
Thank you. You may proceed, sir.
Ms. Hill, briefly tell us a little bit about yourself.
I met Sarah in jail. I spent 3 months in jail and went through a lot of unfortunate circumstances myself.
All right, now this was in the Orange County Jail here in Orlando?
Orange County Jail.
And when would that have been? Do you recall the dates?
Yes, it was April, from April to June of this year.
Of this year,
2024.
2024.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And did you develop a relationship with Sarah Boone over the course of that 3 months?
Yes, yes. We met when I was moved to the B dorm, and I needed help with a form that I needed to complete, and one of the COs pointed to Sarah to help me out. And since that moment, we became really good friends, and she was so helpful, so kind, so respectful, and loving, not just to me, but to everyone. And I have nothing but good things to say about her, her character, her loving heart, and how deep her faith is, her faith in God, and believing in justice for everyone. So that's what I believe.
State, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hill. I appreciate it. Ms. Albert, good afternoon, ma'am. Can you hear me? This is Judge Kranick, and if you can, I would ask you to turn on your camera and unmute yourself at this time, please.
Sir, how do I unmute turn on my camera? I know how to unmute, but I'm not sure how to turn the camera on.
Turn the volume down.
So, ma'am,
Is that better?
When you join the link, there should have been an option for like a pull down on the left-hand side of the screen for you to open on or turn on a camera. I don't know what device you're appearing on, if it's a cell phone or a laptop.
It is an iPhone. Should I try to re-enter the room?
Yeah, try to do that. There should be an option for you to pick a camera. You'll either select the default camera, and hopefully we'll be able to see you at that time.
Okay, let me, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Well, I think like the questions are like, why are they having the chaplain and ex-cons, or I guess they're not really convicted, the woman that was in prison with her testify. Well, they're trying to say that she's a changed person and she will not re-offend. Because part of the sentencing when it comes to it is they have to take into account the severity of the crime and also how likely they are to reoffend. So they're trying to say she is a good person. She made a mistake. I mean, even the woman said it. Mistakes happen. So she's making the assertion that she's a changed person. Oh, just having some issues right now with their camera part of it, but so they're just trying to say she's a changed person. This is why you need to give her another chance to be able to be released and have a life and not waste her time in prison.
Making their statement here telephonically.
Okay, appreciate it. All right, Miss Albert, good afternoon. If you could just state and spell your name for the record for us, please.
Certainly. Lana, L-A-N-A, Albert, A-L-B-E-R-T.
Okay. All right, Mr. Owens is going to ask you some questions. And if you could just answer them, ma'am, I would greatly appreciate it. Sir, you can proceed.
Miss Albert, do you have the ability to turn your volume down?
Yes, I just did. I can't hear you very well when I do that, though.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you, but very, very quietly.
How about now?
Yes, I can hear you. Am I okay?
Yeah, you sound a lot better. You were too loud earlier.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right, Miss Albert, tell the court a little bit about yourself briefly.
Well, I live in Minnesota. I currently have end-stage renal disease. Before I became disabled, I was a business owner in the Twin Cities here.
All right, and how old are you?
I am 50 years old.
All right, and you're considered disabled?
Yes, I am.
All right, and have you had an occasion since this event to establish a relationship with Sarah Boone?
Yes, I have. We have been friends for the past a little over 11 months.
And how do y'all communicate?
We've communicated a lot of phone calls, lots of tablet back and forth, and a lot of letters as well. I'd say many hours of time spent with each other.
All right, and do you want to speak on her behalf here today?
I would, please.
All right, would you please tell the court what you would like for the court to know?
Thank you very much, and thank you very much, Your Honor, for the privilege of speaking on behalf of my friend Sarah Boone. I also want to extend my heartfelt condolences to everyone here affected by this terrible tragedy, which has brought us all here and listening in. Many articles and videos and opinions of Sarah have gone out in the airways and on the webs. Opinions that have been formed and commented on so much that it's hard not to give into the temptation to treat people like a comic book or a fictional character. In the case of my friend Sarah, the words narcissist, Karen, villain, many other things, they roll off the tongue with little regard to the humanity that is dismissed so flippantly. And under a lot of circumstances, I was one of those people, as I have a love of true crime. And becoming friends with Sarah has shown me that there's a lot more depth to the people I see on the screen. I'd like to share with the world and with the court about the Sarah Boone that I know. Sarah Boone is a kind, honest, and good person. The Sarah Boone I know is one who loves animals, especially the kind who are damaged and defenseless. How many of us would take in and pour love for a hearing impaired and a sight impaired pair of dogs? She has a natural instinct to help reach out and give of herself, her time and energy and love, especially to those who are hurting or damaged. You all have seen her fight for her own life and truth here. I tell you this, she fights even harder for those she loves, giving time, attention, and companionship without a single thought for her own gain or what somebody can do for her. And one huge example is in the matter of our friendship. As I said before, I have end-stage renal disease caused by a genetic illness called polycystic kidney disease. As my life has progressed, things I have taken for granted have been taken away from me. I could not appear in court in person because I can no longer walk, as my dialysis treatments have affected the circulation of my legs and has confined me to a wheelchair. To say that my life has radically changed is an understatement. Through it all, I have many friends and family I love and cherish. Sarah has distinguished herself differently in this way. In the course of getting to know her, I started sharing the progressing state of my health. It was like lightning had struck her. The moment Sarah had learned the depth of my struggles health-wise, she straight up offered strenuously to donate a kidney to me. I got to tell you this. I hope she's not mad for me showing this, but she had no hesitation, no concern over personal risk or personal gain. I want to convey to this, out and around the world, that is merely offering is a good and heroic act. I've had many friends. I've not had one outside of my brother who has offered me a kidney. That is huge. I don't have anything of equal value to give to her. And that's not the actions of a narcissist. She did it as a reflex action, as a good person. After the verdict came in October, we spoke that night. And I hope Sarah doesn't get mad at me again for disclosing this, but out of all the shock and seriousness of what had happened in the court, the thing that made her emotionally break was that she realized she could no longer be a donor to me. I mean, I was sitting there like, hey, it's going to be okay. But she was so broken up, she couldn't help me. That's a friend. She is not, nor does she come up anywhere remotely close to being a narcissist. Now, one more thing before I go. Social media has worked to rip the blindfold off of Lady Justice, to take the sword out of her right hand and start assassinating Sarah's character. However, the scales are the balance. As it says in Psalm 85, mercy and truth are met together. Righteousness and peace have kissed each other. Justice isn't justice without mercy. Our pursuit of righteousness isn't complete and right without peace. Thank you, Your Honor, for the honor of speaking for my friend Sarah Boone. I hope that your justice is mixed with mercy here today. Thank you.
State, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Any follow-up, Mr. Owens?
No, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Albert. I appreciate you.
I'd like to call Dr. Harper. You want her on the stand or?
I'm okay with her on the stand.
On the stand?
No, she can be right now. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
The echo is coming from the feed, so I can't do anything about it.
No, she'd be at the podium. That's fine. Doctor, good afternoon. If you could please raise your right hand. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and swear you in. If you could, Doctor, state and spell your name for the record for us, please.
Dr. Julie Harper, Julieharper.
All right, thank you. Counsel, you may inquire.
And Dr. Harper, we all know we were here a few weeks back for the trial, and your testimony, so the judge knows quite a bit about your testimony. But if you could, I know that you prepared a report, and we have submitted that to the court, which the court has read, and the state has a copy. And
I think that during trial testimony, I reviewed all of the documents, excuse me, and all of the records that were available. They're documented in my report as well. In addition to the forensic clinical interviews that I conducted, I also have had the opportunity to talk to her brother, Philip Paulson, in the interim since the trial, and I included his information in my report as to her family background.
If you could, give the court a synopsis of what your findings are, and what you uncovered maybe from the brother, whatever you think the court needs to hear that's relevant material to his decision in this case.
So referring to the summary section of my report, I'll keep it brief, but I'll outline the highlights that I feel like haven't been conveyed before, which is an understanding of Ms. Boone's early family life, in that she is the middle child of her parents' union, and that her parents did not have a happy marriage. They didn't provide an opportunity to have a good role model as to how to have a partnership together. Ms. Boone was born in close proximity to her youngest brother, 11 months apart, and in my clinical experience and training, I would say that that disrupted her attachment with her mother, some being close in proximity with her younger brother, whose temperament just seemed to suit a relationship with her mother better than her own. So ultimately, Ms. Boone bonded with her father, though he wasn't described by either child as an affectionate person. He was somebody that was there for her at sporting events and more of a primary parent for her in that way. His untimely death by heart attack during her high school years was marked by her brother as a turning point for her in how she was acting at home. Her demeanor, her relationship with her mother took a turn for the worse. She was not coping well. She was using substances based on what her brother was saying. And it is my opinion that that early lack of foundational relations with her mom and not feeling very secure, the death of her father, destabilized her. That's a period of your life when you're leaving high school, when you should have formed a very solid foundation to go out in the world, and I don't think that that's what she had at that moment. She bonded easily with Mr. Boone, and you can see that there are elements of that early difficulty with her relationships because she took on a parentified role, in my opinion, during that relationship. And therefore, there's a power imbalance in that she was making decisions and not, again, having an equal relationship. I think that that led her to a sense of being a need to be right, a need to feel like she is the one that's making good decisions, to have some ego support by being in the right all the time with Mr. Boone. And I think that that led to some behaviors that she carried over into her relationship with Mr. Torres, in that she's parentified around him and acting more like a parent-child relationship, being a facilitator of housing and applications for jobs and things like that. So again, there's a power imbalance that I think was very seriously misaligned, as her brother and the property manager of their apartment had verified. They saw her being abused, physically abused in serious ways, or the effects of the abuse in bruising or calls to them. It is my opinion that she called for help, but when people got tired of her not leaving Mr. Torres, they stopped responding to those calls. And basically, Ms. Boone handled things on her own. And as other people with healthier boundaries probably would have left, she, being acting out the pattern of intimate partner violence, did not leave. She stayed long past when it would have been smart for others, or others would have said to leave, sorry. The undergirding of that not leaving the relationship is a long-term anxiety problem that became post-traumatic stress disorder. There is an earlier instance of exposure to traumatic stress in that she was the person in the hospital after her father died who found him having students perform CPR on his dead body. So that was an early exposure to high traumatic stress, witnessing that incident, and based on her brother's description, that was something that changed her. When a person is exposed to numerous compounding
I'm not
stressors,
surprised they're doing
their
this.
adrenaline
I'm not surprised at
system
all
is
that you're
changed.
talking about
it
this.
alters your body. And things that might be an otherwise neutral situation, you tend to have a cascading adrenaline response to that. And I think that that ultimately, for her, as she
They're trying to introduce it into evidence because it didn't get anywhere in trial.
From her partner became post-traumatic stress disorder. I do think that that is a condition that is still existent even while she's in jail. It's something that she needs treatment for.
If it
because
still
those
exists, that
triggers
means
are
that she can
unmitigated,
snap
meaning
and
that she
then
hasn't really
hurt other people
had the kind of
when it
therapy to
triggers
address
that.
them and reduce her
That's not
adrenaline and
something
anxiety
good to
responses
say
when she
at
thinks
all.
of past instances of
Unless
traumatic
she
events that have
gets
happened
treatment,
to her.
she will then likely
You can also respond to post-traumatic stress disorder
hurt other
clinically
people
by,
again. That's not a
using
good thing for her
antidepressant
own witness to
therapy,
say.
and that would be something that could assist her ultimately in reducing symptoms if she had counseling and antidepressant therapy.
Now, Dr. Harper, I know that you had testified at the trial that, in your opinion, she suffered as a battered spouse syndrome that is legally recognized in Florida, in the courts of Florida.
That's correct.
And I understand that that is tied to this intimate partner violence, which is maybe the same thing, but there's a complex mental health issue that ties into that. Can you speak on the complexity of that whole?
Again, what he's doing here is he's testifying instead of having her testify. Attorneys love to testify.
Certainly.
We're not witnesses.
So,
Our
intimate
questions,
partner
through our
violence is a
questions, we
diagnosis.
testify all the time.
It's a pattern of events that occur between two partners in which the power dynamic is altered by the physical abuse or behaviors that are controlling in nature to the point that someone's safety is threatened. It's common for victims of that to have a complex
So what she's doing here is she's giving her own opinion about what happened and why the murder happened.
What might be substance abuse to cope
Which,
with the problem.
you know, some states allow, some
oneself,
states do not allow.
will
So she's just
sometimes
giving her
result
own
in its
opinion
own
here.
diagnosis.
And because she's being
The
held as an
pattern of
expert
intimate partner
witness, they
violence, I
hope
think we
that
covered in the trial, but
this will
just
help
in
to
summary
explain
about
that
there
she's
are
not
phases
evil. She just
in which
snapped.
at first, the bonding of the two partners might be something positive. They've got, something in common or have pleasurable, time together. And then the secondary phase of that is when there is change in dynamic and some kind of traumatic event occurs, some instance of physical violence. And then there's a third phase in which it's like a honeymoon phase where they're trying to right the relationship. So in phase one, when they're having something pleasurable, the tone shifts. Phase two, there is some kind of incident. And phase three, there's a honeymoon phase.
Well,
As that
if you think
pertains to
about it, what they're
anxiety,
trying to say is that if she goes back
who suffers
into
from
society,
partner
she's not
violence
going to
never
go killing
stops
people just because she got away with it.
experiencing That
right?
Hypervigilance,
And
waiting for the next
I think like
of violence to
they're just
occur.
trying
So
to
even
say
though
she's
they
a
look
good
happy, they
person.
might be
Generally, she
experiencing
would have
something
not
positive.
done this. She
They've
poses
not
no
really
risk
relaxed
to the
because
public
the
if you
memory
let her
that
go.
could or will occur again is still in
Because
their
the
mind.
sentencing
They
can
haven't
still be anywhere,
stopped
can go
experiencing intimate
anywhere.
partner violence. It's just what phase of
And
the
it might make her eligible for parole earlier too. If there is good conduct, she might be eligible for parole much earlier on than she would if they say not eligible for
That's what's
parole.
been marked. I don't believe it's been filed in the court file.
So I think that they're
If it has,
looking
it's something
for.
if it needs to be, it's something we can address. I have reviewed it. It does reflect confidential privilege information on the first page. I don't believe it's been filed in the court file unless you did it. Okay. It already has been? All right, appreciate it. Okay, excellent. Thank you, sir.
And Dr. Harper, you're aware that the defense is
Exactly, Blockish Owl. If you can snap at any point, you really shouldn't be going out and about.
under paragraph 3, the capacity of the
that testimony was not as helpful as I think they would want it to be, because they're saying that
Were substantially impaired.
she snapped because of her PTSD and her trauma.
A mental disorder that is not related to substance use or addiction, although you agree that she does suffer from
Alcoholism. Yeah.
So she has an underlying mental health disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and I additionally diagnosed her with alcohol use disorder, which is separate.
But you agree she does.
So she is an alcoholic that can snap because of her PTSD, but let's please bring her back out.
She acted under extreme duress in this unique homicide case.
Yes.
Okay, so now this is what he said. So he said in his own testimony, the lawyer testified himself by saying, this is an extreme, unique case. So this is how they're portraying her testimony to say, there you go,
That's my
isolated.
understanding as well.
Other than she had the charge where she was.
We're hearing isolated offense, extreme situation that would drive her to kill somebody.
Prior felony case.
That's what we're getting out of this testimony. And the other folks that testified were talking about she's a good person. She would give her liver to friends. She wants to help other people. She's very, well, I mean, they didn't say she was religious. They said she was very spiritual.
Can she take a stand so I can take the podium?
Yes, that's fine. You may inquire, sir.
In pages 1 and 2 of your report, you go through the sources of your information, correct?
Yes.
And that would include 8 interviews that you had with her from the course of August of 2020 through September of 2024, correct?
There were 9 interviews, but 8 dates of service are listed.
You did the Miller Forensic Assessment of Symptoms Test, or MFAST.
That's right.
Inventory of Legal Knowledge, ILK.
That's right.
Clinician-administered PTSD Scale 5 examination.
Yes.
You consulted with her attorney.
Yes.
Videotaped interviews from this court case number of Sarah Boone, interview part 1 and 2, Abraham Moreno interview, Brandon Moats interview, Brian Boone interview, Juan Torres interview, and Melissa Sexton interview, correct?
Yes.
You reviewed the autopsy photos?
Yes.
You reviewed some of the digital forensic exhibits, including the Apple iPhone XS and a Samsung SMJ 327 T1 photographs from those 2 devices?
Yes.
You reviewed Bates stamped discovery pages 1 through 413.
That's correct.
The crime scene photos are photos of a scene taken on June 19th of 2020.
Yes.
Aspire Health records.
Yes.
And who do those pertain to?
Aspire Health records are for Sarah Boone.
Florida Hospital Medical Group records.
Yes.
And who do those records pertain to?
That is also for Sarah Boone.
And Aspire, is that a mental health treatment facility?
It has an emergency department record, but that would be the place where she was detained under the Baker Act.
And it is routine and common in the practice of forensic psychology or psychiatry to rely on the records of other such practitioners.
As a source of information, sure.
You reviewed the deposition of Dr. Tanya Warner.
I did.
You reviewed the trial testimony of Sarah Boone, Brian Boone, Dr. Michael Brannon, Dr. Tanya Werner, correct?
Yes.
The jury verdict form dated 10/25/24.
Yes.
Witness list notice of filing amended.
Yes.
On this case. Records of Jorge Torres or George Torres involving case numbers 2019 MM 5114, a 911 call and PDF, case 2019 MM 7193, case 2019 MM 7193 Torres Public Records, case 2019 MM 7193 Torres Photos, Central Florida Primary Care Records, Advent Health Orlando Medical Records, correct?
Yes.
And those latter records that I just mentioned, those for Mr. Torres and not Ms. Boone, correct?
That's right.
Then you reviewed Sarah Boone written correspondence, Sarah's listing of domestic violence incidents, Sarah's writings regarding missing days of work and Baker Act, and a 74-page life story.
That's right.
And then case 2018 CF 10573, public records and photos.
Yes.
And a telephone interview with Melissa Sexton, the property manager, which you conducted on October 1st, 2024.
Yes.
And a telephonic interview with Philip Paulson, the defendant's brother, on November 26, 2024.
Yes.
Where has Ms. Boone been housed and living since February of 2020?
At the Orange County Jail.
And does the Orange County Jail provide mental health services to inmates?
It does.
And you already testified you would routinely, as a forensic psychologist, review records kept of psychological or psychiatric treatment of a patient or a client, correct?
Yes.
In this particular case, have you reviewed any mental health records generated by the Orange County Jail for Ms. Boone?
No, I have not had the opportunity to do that.
So, for the last 58 months or so, if she was
In
being
4
seen by the
years,
mental
she
health
didn't
treatment
review them?
staff at the jail,
Either they
you would
don't
not review
exist
those.
or they're bad.
And they are overseen at the jail, in the Orange County Jail, by a psychiatrist. Are you aware or not?
If the person's level of mental health intervention deems them eligible for psychiatry, then they will.
And any diagnosis or lack of diagnosis that they have had during the course of the last 58 months, you are unaware of because you did not review the records.
That's right.
I don't have any other questions.
Any redirect examination?
No, Judge.
All right, thank you.
One question. Dr. Harper, I didn't ask you to review those records, did I?
No.
Thank you.
Oh, her testimony was so
Judge,
leading.
I
I
you said it
wish
at the
he
very
would have
beginning
not asked that question.
that,
I
had
didn't
submitted
ask you to
several
review
letters
those
on
records.
behalf of,
That's bad.
Ms. Boone, and she didn't hear that, but I wanted her to be made aware.
Yes, ma'am.
And that you don't actually read those letters into the record, but you did read them.
I have reviewed them. They're in my binder here. How many do I have?
I don't think her
Yes, I have.
glasses would help.
I have.
So like I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, impact statements can be done
I
either
have 6
verbally or in
handwritten
writing.
letters. First one is 1 page. Second one is 2 pages. Third one is 1 page. Fourth one is 2 pages. Fifth one is 2 pages. Sixth one is 2 pages. I have a typed letter from Diane Smith, the assistant chaplain. I have another typed letter from a Nicole Ray, a typed letter from a Stephanie L., a typed letter from Philip Paulson, a email from Lana Albert, 2 pages in length, and a 2-page email from a Danielle Parsons.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Judge, I would like to call Sarah Boone.
You may proceed.
If you could take this.
Yes, please.
Oh, this is interesting. You're going to have Sarah Boone testify on behalf of herself about why she deserves to get on parole and not be sentenced for a long time. This should be... I mean, Sarah Boone seems very much a control freak. This seems to be in par based on her behavior.
Inquire, sir.
I don't think the psychologist would have done better with new glasses. I think her testimony was
a trial.
Was very
So you're
much
allowed to
scripted.
to speak in a narrative form, as well as I understand you have taken some notes or written a letter that you want to read from, and then you want to speak to the court after that.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and get started?
This is actually an edited version of. I had a lot to say. I've had a lot of time to think about things, and I didn't really know how to put it on paper, and I didn't know how much I could say or how little I should say. So what I have here is, like I said, an edited version. But I would like to read the more important parts that I feel that everyone should know that wasn't said in my actual trial. And
Oh,
on top
boy.
of what I
Here we
have
go.
on paper, I have, this is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg.
Oh, God.
So I wanted to read this, and then if I may, I would like to address everyone in my apology on top of my statement.
You may proceed, ma'am.
Kintu Sukuroi is a kind of Japanese ceramic style which means to repair with gold. In this tradition, when a ceramic piece breaks, an artisan will fuse the pieces back together again using liquid gold or gold dust lacquer. So rather than being covered up, the breaks become more obvious and a brilliant new piece of art emerges from the brokenness. It embraces flaws, weakness, and imperfections, and also teaches the essence of resilience. Every crack in a ceramic piece is a part of its history, and each piece becomes more beautiful because it has been broken. This is the wisdom of Kintu Sukuroi. In my wisdom and with all of my repairs, then, now, and ongoing, God is, has been, and will always be my artisan. All of my gold is forgiveness. This has held me together, made me shine brighter, and overcome the damage caused by George Torres, the Torres family, the justice system, Orange County Corrections
She's
Department,
blaming the
social media,
victim.
scoundrel detectives,
Oh boy. Oh
infamy,
boy. She just
defamation,
blamed
ongoing
the
constitutional
victim
rights
and the court
violations,
system.
second-degree murder, forced into being pro se.
Defamation.
Just as gold is very precious,
Forced
forgiveness
into
is
being pro
invaluable.
se.
Forgiveness is not an attempt to change or forget who, what, or how you've lived through to be so gold, but an act of grace,
boy.
humility, and
Oh, my
considerable
God.
self-compassion to be set free from sorrow. Withholding forgiveness denies your brilliance and adds even greater grief and deeper heartache. Irreparable cracks on top of the already that no one deserves, no matter the pain or disappointment, untruths or injustice. It doesn't matter, as the more broken you are, even though now different than before, you've become more outstanding and more extraordinary. Above all, when you let go of blame, misunderstandings, excuses, give up your anger and cease from resentment, this is forgiven. And when you forgive, you heal. And when you heal, you move forward. My goal begins with George Torres, and every time he slapped me, kicked, punched, spit on, raped, stabbed, choked, laughed at, pushed, pulled, dragged, whipped, tripped, stole from, lied, terrorized, threatened, humiliated, forced, degraded, made me cry.
Okay, you guys,
Every time he
the
tried
stuff
to
that
end
she's
me,
saying
defeat, or
is
destroy.
not, some of the stuff she
I forgive
never
George
proved it
for
actually
beating me
happened. Just
senseless,
for the record.
for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, my son's furniture.
So this is the stuff
destroying
she
the
wanted to
television
bring
we watched
out,
together,
but she couldn't.
for wrecking our townhome by breaking windows, punching holes in the
Because
walls
it
and
was
doors,
impermissible
ramming
character
his entire
evidence.
body into glass doors, kicking in my front and back door over and over and over, for breaking or removing the locks from all of the doors and sometimes the knobs altogether, so I had nowhere to feel safe, including the sacred space of my son's room where he beat me bloody on his bed. For terrorizing and threatening my blind and deaf dogs by leaving the gate open I built to keep them safe, telling me he hoped I'd find their bloated dead body in the pond or scrape their remains off of the pavement.
She
For
is a
kicking them
mom
off of
and
the
her
bed
son is
throwing
currently with her
across the room
ex-husband.
because they were trying to protect me.
So
For threatening
she's
to make me
saying he
unrecognizable
left
to
the
my
door
son
gate
by breaking all
open.
of the bones in my face.
So
Like
that's
his
why
brother
he
Moses
deserved
did
this.
to him after he kept seeing all of the bruises from George beating me, like all of the times their father beat their mother. For all of the drunken rages and fist fights with so many neighbors when wandering into their apartments during hunting expeditions after I had escaped.
What?
For drowning me in liquor and wine
No.
because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the
He's
bottle
saying
in
that
my
he
face,
forced her
giving me
to
2
drink
black
when
eyes
she's
and
an
a bloody nose.
alcoholic.
For making me experience what it is to be sodomized. Threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece. for threatening to burn down our townhome and set my car on fire.
She
because I
did
got a
say
job.
she was gonna bring stuff that was
For
not
holding me
admitted at
hostage on
trial.
weekends, my son was supposed to come over by keeping my keys around his neck, my phone in his crotch, and a butcher knife stuck in the middle of the table as a warning not to ask anything or try to leave. For stabbing me in the leg and not letting me call 911 for an ambulance or seek help, where I nearly bled to death until I concocted a lie to save him from being arrested. For destroying my phone with a hammer because my son called. For me experiencing ever being arrested, and after today, prison. For beating me almost blind, crushing my occipital lobe. For having
Did
me
she really
experience
just
what it
blame
means
him
to
because
see
she was
stars
arrested
like in
and
the
now
cartoons,
she's
where a
convicted?
character has a tall lump on their head. I had that too, and many times. For dragging me downstairs by my hair in the middle of the night just to sit next to him. For taking my car driving drunk with my debit card to buy more alcohol while I slept, even after I kindly explained the importance of my car to take my son to school foremost, me to work, and he to his batterers intervention classes and probation officer meetings, where I would be forced to sit for hours in the parking lot waiting for him. For causing me so much trauma and pain, mentally, physically, emotionally, I had to be hospitalized more than once. For destroying my reputation and integrity, for my M for murderer scarlet letter, not letting me feel safe to live, talk to other people, spend time with my son, have a job, friendships, simply go to the bathroom with the door closed, or go to sleep soundly or comfortably. I forgive George for lying, for him trying in so many ways, so many times, to end me with his terrifying love. I also forgive the Torres family, his mother and father foremost, also his 2 ex-wives and daughters, all for knowing who George was, capable of, and has done in the past, his history of violence and where he learned it, then to keep turning a blind eye when I would ask for help. All of his siblings, including Farrell Torres, who is now on his way to prison for stabbing the mother of their baby in the side of her head. For everyone who knew what George was doing to me, sometimes how and when, but allowed and enabled. I forgive them for caring too late. I hope they all ask themselves while quiet and comfortable in bed at night the uneasy question, what could I have done to stop this from happening to both of them? And after all the times Sarah tried to, by asking for help, from all of us, and so many times. Another great contributor of my gold is social media, with its greed, insensitivity, deception, obvious exploitation, and advantageous gain from my criminal case as a whole.
I don't mean to laugh, but
and for
she's blaming
sentencing me by
social media?
anticipation as a result of ignorance and hate, conjured and fabricated by the organized crime that is social media.
When you organize crime that is social media.
My family law case is the new prey waiting to be picked apart and pillaged from
my
being made infamous by social media in my criminal case. It simply seems I cannot forgive and be forgiven and move forward.
I thought I'm just gonna stay here quietly and then comment at the end, but this is insane.
Especially by broadcasting and manipulating my cases online. In my criminal case, as a result, my opportunities to be given a fair, proper, and uninfluenced, successful conclusion was heavily depleted and poisoned. I forgive them. Also, all of the media tycoons for not having a life of their own, trying so desperately to make themselves seem so right by making me appear so wrong. Forgiveness for prejudgment, ridiculous
prejudgment,
lies, making
okay,
and
woman,
taking blood money
you took
from
a video
and others' misfortunes, accidents, and catastrophes.
Oh my God!
It's all over their hands and their
I can't even.
And even after all that's been said and done, theorized, hypothesized, scrutinized, and blasphemed, in my case, still no one knows me. In the end, I forgive myself for not choosing my life sooner, for not being more brave, vigilant, bolder, and outspoken, stronger, mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
Oh,
for being
holy
hopeless, desperate,
shit,
simple-minded,
you guys.
and inexperienced. I forgive myself for not realizing I was enduring a life of domestic violence, and that
yes, she is insinuating a grand conspiracy. That's correct.
I have nothing to compare to. I've never been hit by a man ever before in my life. I was raised hitting a woman was wrong and should never happen. No excuse. I forgive myself for not escaping permanently, for not fighting back sooner to save myself, my son, my dogs, home, and car. Having 20/20 hindsight, thinking of everything I could have done differently or better to avoid the outcome. I think about this every day since. Also, of all the good days we had together, for him at least, while I was constantly in hyperdrive, high alert, and paranoid, making sure I did everything right all the time. If not, the great possibility I would be ended as George threatened me with so many times before. I forgive myself for falling in love with a monster, and no matter how grotesque he may become, I still loved him, hoped, and forgave. I tried breaking the spell so he wouldn't be a monster anymore. I saw who he was inside. George made me then, now, and always love him for all of his cracks also. We made each other our own brilliant pieces of art from the cracks and repairs. Unfortunately, not all cracks can be. In all of my forgiveness, George is my greatest lesson and will forever be a part of me. I think of him every day and still speak to him when alone on the rec yard. I ask his forgiveness and that he looks for me at the gates of heaven so I can tell him how sorry I am, endlessly, and that I never stopped loving him. In all of it and still. When I first came to jail, I put my mat under my bed and cried all day and all night for months, only falling asleep from being so exhausted with grief. I wrote him letters. I wrote his family and his daughters, apologizing for asking for their forgiveness. But due to fear that my life or sons would be jeopardized, I did not send. I am sorry. I cannot begin to fathom any of their grief and sadness. Please forgive me. Almost everything reminds me of him, seeing my stab wound especially every day especially. It truly reminds me that all I really did live through. George haunts me. He is everywhere. I believe because I do still love him, think of him, and miss his laugh the most. In my heart, I know he is with me and understands that this tragedy was not intentional. I hope everyone can, his family foremost. I didn't mean for this to happen. Please wholeheartedly know that, and always, I would never. Forgive me, George. Forgive me, Torres family. Forgive me, Judge Cranick. To the entire planet, please forgive me. I graciously and humbly ask for consideration, for forgiveness to be extended instead of judgment, for reconciliation and restoration for all of us to move forward. My apology is profuse and ceaseless. Allow me please to brush off the muck, wipe the blood off of my face, and fix the cuts in my skin. I ask for understanding in what really happened and for how long, for second chances, repentance, and redemption, to advocate for all domestic violence survivors, to help them overcome, heal, and still hope, always, to make their voices heard, to confidently walk with all of their scars on the outside and the inside, to help them not ever become a casualty of domestic violence as so many others, to stop the abuse and maltreatment before it's too late. There is always hope, and you can survive. In my soft-spoken conclusion, I ask this.
Soft-spoken
Would I be
conclusion.
the darling mother, celebrated woman of the year, if it were I who died?
Oh my God.
How many daughters, mothers, sisters, aunts, grandmothers, nieces, and friends have been because they did? I am a survivor.
Well then.
Learn to do good, seek justice.
Oh my God, I thought she was done.
Oppressors.
Seek
defend
justice.
the fatherless. Plead for the widow. Isaiah 1:17.
Plead for the widow.
All-encompassing. Protect the abused.
Again, the entire time, she looked really pissed off and mad.
Now, gathering your thoughts, did you want to make an oral statement?
I do.
All right, would you do that now?
Yes, please. My statement, my verbal statement, is primarily to the Torres family, to the judge, to his daughters. I know you all know who I really am, and that
I think we all know who you are.
That I do still love George. I know you know that we had very many
yeah, I
good
get
days.
creative.
And I take offense to the statement of being said that this is just for a moment. Right now with me here in the courtroom in front of you all, this is just for a moment. But the moments before that, in order for me to be here, is endless. It's everlasting. The scars that I have on the inside, my outside scars have healed, except for my stab wound. But this has changed me as a person to see things differently and to understand things differently and to not be weak and just try to protect yourself and
Oh boy, and not be
forever,
weak.
regardless of the time that I may receive from today.
I thought you were apologizing, lady.
I forever will have this experience. I forever will have George Torres with me in my heart, in my mind, my body, and my soul. As he and I used to say that we were one soul split into two bodies. This is not just for a moment. It may be for everyone in this courtroom, but when I leave, this is forever. When you all leave, that this is forever. This is forever for everyone here and those who it matters to most. I am one of those who will experience this forever. I'm sorry. Words do not define my shame, and I don't know what else it is that I can say and convey to the Torres family how this happened. The ifs and whys and how really don't matter. It happened, and I'm sorry.
It didn't matter why it happened? Oh boy.
Words cannot describe. And I hope that everyone can forgive me, the Torres family most of all, and his daughters, because I know what he meant to them. And I don't think that anybody ever understood what he meant to me and I to him. And I ask for forgiveness.
Ms. Boone, I have just one or two questions, if you don't mind. And you can speak on it if you want or not. But this is a unique case, and one of the reasons it's so unique is that you were in jail for 4.5 years prior to your trial. And I understand that when you were brought up as a child that you did have some spirituality in your family, some church, some religion.
Always.
But I understand that you got away from that. Did you have a chance during the 4.5 years to look back at your spirituality?
Absolutely. You know, everyone supposes that this is one of the worst experiences of my life, and it's actually been one of my greatest. If I were not beaten to death, I was going to work myself to death on the outside, and I never had time to get back into my Bible and to pray and to be with the Lord. And I, being here incarcerated, have had time, of course, to get closer to God, to reacquaint myself to Him and realize what it's all about. This is all temporary, and when I say temporary, I don't mean by being set free in jail or from prison or wherever else. It means being set free and temporary, meaning that you work for something higher, you work for God, that you strive for your crown to be placed upon your head by Jesus Christ by being said,
she wants Jesus Christ to put a crown on her head.
I've always tried to be a good and faithful servant. I was just a servant as opposed to doing all that I can when my family were alive and I was going through everything up to this point. I've become so much more closer to the Lord, and it's made me such a better person, and I hope that I am an example going forward of the Lord's light and can draw many people to me because of it.
Any follow-up, State?
No, I assumed that was the final word.
Thank you. She can return back to council's table. Anything else from your side of the ledger, Mr. Owens?
No more witnesses, Judge, just arguments.
Okay. Anything else in rebuttal, or just proceed to argument, State?
Just proceed to argument.
Okay. All right. Once Ms. Booth's seated, you can proceed with your argument, either Mr. J or Mr. Cacciatore. You may proceed, sir.
Your Honor, I'm going to start my argument by what I anticipate Mr. Owens will bring up in his presentation. regarding the plea offer in this case. That she was offered the resolution in this case of 15 years in the Department of Corrections to begin with. I think it's important, though, that the entire circumstance of that plea offer is put forward. And there's something very critical to that. It's not just 15 years in the Department of Corrections. It's 15 years in the Department of Corrections, but it's predicated on something. And the consideration that it's predicated on is the defendant coming to court and accepting responsibility for her actions. For her coming to court and saying, I am responsible for George Torres's death, and I accept the punishment that comes with it. That consideration was never given in this case. And because that consideration was never given in this case, the offer of 15 years in no way represents what this case is worth, or what George Torres's life is worth. That is an offer predicated on a particular circumstance, a circumstance of a first-time defendant accepting responsibility and giving every benefit of the doubt and coming to court and saying that they are ready to be punished. Those conditions were never met. So then we turn to this case, and we turn to this crime, and we turn to the actions of the defendant of taking the law into her own hands and murdering George Torres. She has never shown remorse for that. She didn't show remorse for that here today. She again painted herself as the victim. She's the victim of George Torres. She recounted the litany of evil deeds and mistreatments that he perpetrated upon her.
I would say that he allegedly perpetrated, because some of the stuff they did testify about the fact that he did stab her on her thigh, or in her thigh, just went right through, and she did end up going to the hospital. But some of the other allegations, I would say, are alleged because they never proved it.
Every one of George Torres's loved ones to a life sentence.
I think it's okay to feel bad for the defense attorneys.
Just like she sentenced George Torres when he was in that suitcase.
Only 2 items of what she said, actually came in trial, and they actually talked about it, and she has proof on. The other ones, she did not.
In that suitcase.
So when she made those arguments that this is what he did, it was not. That's an alleged.
Any argument.
That's an allegation. That's not a fact.
This was somehow unsophisticated. There was ample time and opportunity over and over for her to do something different. But she went forward with taking the law into her own hands and ensuring that George Torres was never getting out of there. While she went up to bed and went to sleep for hours on end. She can't say that she was in duress for the same reason. She was in such duress of George Torres that she goes upstairs and goes to sleep for 11 hours. Your Honor, there's been nothing from the testimony of Dr. Harper either that establishes any type of diagnosis that would give this court a basis to downward depart.
And you are correct, Nosaku. This was mutual domestic.
To the fact that she has been incarcerated for 58 months.
Oh my God, the poor mother of Jorge Torres. That must have been so heartbreaking to listen to a testimony.
And the expert witness is absolutely incurious about what any of those records or diagnosis or anything that would have been there would have said. There is no valid basis for a downward departure in this case. She deserves a life sentence. Thank you.
Mr. Owens, response?
Just credit. First off, I want to thank you for taking the time to hear our side, hear the witnesses, and review the letters on Sarah Boone's behalf. You know, we've all been here for this trial. We've all been here for other trials. We've all got some age on us. We've all got some life experience on us. And this is a unique case. This was a unique homicide. It was a unique death. And as we all know, a lot of these cases are not black and white. They're shades of gray. And these crimes don't occur in a vacuum. That there's generally a history, especially involving a domestic couple, a history that comes into play that must be explored. And a lot of what Sarah Boone testified to here today probably happened behind closed doors. And we all know that many times we do not know what happens behind closed doors between a man and a woman in their home, unless there is some reason for the neighbors or law enforcement or somebody else to get involved. And that happened in this case. And so gradually over time, as this event occurred, there was an investigation, and it was learned that there was a history of domestic violence involving these two parties. And what we learned was that physically there was violence, and there were photographs to establish that, as were introduced in the trial. And then there was testimony from experts, not only the defense expert, Dr. Harper, that Sarah Boone was the victim, and she was a victim of intimate partner violence, but coupled with the fact that the state's expert testified on the stand at the trial that Sarah Boone was a victim of intimate partner violence, that she suffered from this domestic or this battered spouse syndrome as the hands of George Torres. So there's two sides to it. And in a domestic violence situation like that, 95% of the women get out of that relationship. When violence starts to occur, they've either been raised a certain way, they have a certain self-esteem about themselves, where they refuse to put up with it, knowing that it's wrong, knowing that they can do better. But there is a small percentage throughout the country that, for whatever reason, mental health issues, addiction issues, whatever it is, it's complex. Financial reasons, children are involved, whatever. If you do any studying on it, there are circumstances where there is a group of women, predominantly women, it can happen to men, but majority of the time it's a woman that gets caught in this cycle of what we term as intimate partner violence. And court heard the testimony about the cycle that occurs. It's over a period of time, and it repeats itself, and you go through these phases. And a lot of times the victim's not a great historian at trying to articulate it. She tried to do it here today. And I think on Sarah Boone's behalf, she is a unique individual. She's got the personality that she's got. I don't know You heard from Dr. Harper that a lot of that was formulated based on the way her mother did not bond with her, the way that her father was the way that he was, the fact that she lost several relatives at a young age, and the trauma that can result. We heard from Dr. Harper that she did suffer from post-traumatic stress as it relates to that trauma in early childhood, and then again as it relates to the events that occurred between Mr. Torres and her. So it's complicated, Judge. It's complicated. But the jury has spoken. Sarah Boone was entitled under Florida law to present that defense, and she did. That testimony was allowed to be presented. She was allowed to testify. But the jury spoke. And so here we are today with you in a position to decide what is justice for Sarah Boone. And I don't know you that much other than our time together, but from what I know you try to do the right thing. And that's what we're asking the court to do, to have some discernment, to have some understanding of the unique situation that Sarah Boone found herself in. And quite frankly, Judge, this all didn't occur behind closed doors. A lot of this was in the public eye.
It was in an apartment behind closed doors.
Mr.
They were
Torres had,
locked.
I believe, 3 criminal cases before the courts of this county in which Sarah Boone was a victim.
That is correct, Nosaku.
Torres
This was murder of
was the
negligence. That is accurate. This is why it made it into second-degree murder,
cases were dismissed.
which is
We know
she
from the
was
history
convicted
this domestic
of her
violence field
actions
that's normal.
that
Sarah Boone,
would
every
have
time
led
they
to
tried bond him
somebody's
out or
death.
tried to get the case dismissed.
And the jury
At some
found that
point,
a
somebody
reasonable
has to stop.
person would have known that leaving
has to say
somebody in a suitcase would
What's
have
going on
led to
here?
their death when they're saying, I can't breathe,
Keeps repeating.
based on the position that they were in,
gonna get
based on the
worse.
amount of intoxication that they were in,
Something's gonna happen.
and based on the fact that she grabbed the bat and hit him while he
The
was
system
still in
failed
there.
Sarah Boone. I'd ask for you to consider that. The circumstances surrounding that failure and what led us here today.
No, our frost, not at all. I think it's fascinating, but also that's because
I've asked the
I
court
do
to consider that
litigation.
downward departure.
So this is my bread
I
and
believe you've
butter.
gotten a copy of the score sheet.
I'll say I don't do criminal
Not since
law,
before trial.
but I do litigation.
Is the score sheet stipulated to?
Yes, yes, sir.
All right, you may approach. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Judge, I was provided that here today, and I believe, I can't remember the total number of months that it involves, but divided by 12, I think it's 20 months. 20.6 is the low end of the guidelines or something about.
It's 246.0 months based on the score sheet.
I did the calculation, but I believe that the low end is 20 years, 20 years, 20.6 years state prison, I believe is the low end.
20.5. Yes, sir.
As the court knows, I believe it's on page 3. There are some aggravators that the court can consider in opposing the sentence, and then there are a list of mitigators that the court can
Of course,
consider in
mitigators,
downward
mitigating
departing,
circumstances.
meaning going lesser than the low
And
end
this
of
is
the guidelines.
part, and this is the reason why
And
they
in
had
the
those
defendant's
people come
motion
in.
for downward departure, we mentioned, and I had Dr. Harper testify
Regal.
about
Extreme
2 or 3 of the grounds,
situation,
and the court needs to
right?
only find one
Isolated
to go below
incident.
the guidelines.
She's a good person. She's
The capacity of the
religious.
defendant to appreciate the criminal nature of her actions and to conform said actions to the requirements of the law were substantially impaired. Judge, I don't have to reiterate the facts and circumstances surrounding this event. You were here, you heard the testimony, you heard the circumstances surrounding what happened and how it happened. I would ask that you consider that.
So, oh my God, they're
as a
saying that she
mitigator.
didn't appreciate the nature of the crime because she had an extreme
The defendant
PTSD
requires
event.
specialized treatment for a mental disorder that is not related to substance abuse for addiction and is amenable to treatment.
So
think it's
PTSD.
Fair to say here.
Even though she's an
that we know
alcoholic,
that
they're saying it's
Sarah
PTSD.
Suffers from some mental health issues, objective mental health issues that have been opined by Dr. Harper and Dr. Werner. And you heard Dr. Harper testify about the post-traumatic stress disorder that she suffers from as it relates to this event, as it relates to her trauma that occurred in childhood. I think we heard from Dr. Werner. Dr. Werner testified that she suffered from the alcohol abuse disorder, as did Dr. Harper, but Dr. Werner also mentioned that she was not for sure about the anxiety disorder, whether it occurred prior to or because she was in the jail for the 4.5 years. However, she does require specialized treatment for the mental disorder, and she is amenable for treatment. And then third, the defendant acted under extreme duress, I think based on Sarah Boone's mindset as she testified to her today, and then you heard from the experts at the trial that when you get that anxious about what happens, Sarah testified about they would have good days where there would be no drinking or very little drinking, and then there would be other days where there was heavy drinking, and generally when George Torres got highly intoxicated is when potentially things could get violent, and that she was constantly anxious about each day that she was with him. She loved him, obviously being in a cycle like that where you love someone but can't leave them. For whatever reason, George Torres couldn't leave Sarah Boone, and Sarah Boone couldn't leave George Torres, and it was a vicious cycle. But we believe that she qualifies under that it was under extreme duress at the time of this event. And lastly, the defense was committed in an unsophisticated manner, which was an isolated incident. Now, isolated, we know, Judge, that she had one prior event in which both of them were arrested. You heard her testimony that it was during an event. They ended up downstairs next to the washer and dryer, and that she was on the bottom, and she had used her hands to try to get him off, and she had tried to choke him, and there were some marks on him. And she was arrested for felony domestic violence.
So what he's going through here
well as he was arrested.
is under the Criminal Procedure and Corrections Florida Statute 921.0026, mitigating circumstances.
Other than that event. Now, I think
that's what
that
he's
could
going
be
through right now.
distinguished. So we believe that it was an unsophisticated manner. Obviously, the uniqueness of this event is unsophisticated. Anybody that would calculate that they were going to murder somebody by putting them in a suitcase and letting them spend the night, and the next morning not try to dispose of the body, not try to put the suitcase in a car and go dump the body, not try to dispose of the bat, do something. She did nothing. No attempts to tamper with evidence. No attempts after the fact to uncover any conduct whatsoever. No attempts to delete the videos from her phone. Here's my phone. Voluntarily given that information. I think that goes to the unsophisticated manner and unintentional death that occurred. I remember the first time I saw the suitcase video. And I know people have differing opinions. Tony Henderson, my colleague, had a different opinion when he saw it. But I remember the first time I saw the video, and I heard what she was saying to him. When he was saying, "Hey, Sarah, let me out. I can't breathe," or words to that effect. And the way that she was talking to him, and the statements that she gave to him, in my mind, what has he done to her? What has he done to her? Any loved one you see in a situation like that is going to run and let them out. So my thought was, obviously, they were both drinking. But what has he done to her? And I think it's telling about what she'd endured So it's not a clear-cut case, Judge. It's not black and white. There is some gray, and it's up to you to decide what's appropriate based on the court's, based on the jury's decision. But I would ask you to temper whatever justice that you think is appropriate with some mercy, and consider the fact that the state was willing to offer 15 years on a manslaughter as a lesser included offense based on the facts and circumstances that they were aware of prior to this trial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any rebuttal by the state?
No,
Okay. The court has had the opportunity to review the evidence and testimony that was presented at trial. The victim impact statements presented here today, the statements of character witnesses, both orally and in writing, Dr. Harper's report and testimony, the defendant's testimony, pre-sentencing investigation, the arguments of the state and the arguments of the defense. Court pronounces sentence as follows. Ms. Boone, court sentences you to life in the Department of Corrections with credit time served that Madam Clerk will provide to you momentarily. There are also court costs and costs of prosecution, which Madam Clerk will give you the totals of momentarily. Due to the court levying a life sentence, the court is inclined to liquidate those to a civil judgment unless I hear opposition from the state.
no opposition, Your Honor.
All right. Madam Clerk, if you could please give us the credit time served and the court costs, please.
4 years, 9 months, and 8 days, and the court costs are $418, a state prosecution fee of $100, a dirt fee of $50, and a PD. Oh, excuse me, you're not supervised.
I'm right.
So the total would be, will come up to $618.
All right, ma'am, the court costs and costs of prosecution are $618. Those will be liquidated to a civil judgment. You will be given credit time served of 4 years, 9 months, and 8 days.
There you go. She got
You will have 30 days from today to appeal the judgment and sentence in writing. If you cannot afford an attorney, one will be provided to you. I'm going to have the courtroom deputy provide you the paperwork. Because you've been incarcerated for the last 58 some odd months, the court is going to declare that you are indigent in this matter. I cannot appoint the public defender to represent you as they are conflicted out. Similarly, I cannot appoint the Regional Conflict Counsel to represent you for the same reasons. The clerk will appoint an attorney from the conflict wheel who specializes in appellate litigation. And again, you'll have 30 days from today to appeal that judgment and sentence in writing. Do you have any questions for me? You will now be remanded into the custody of the Orange County Jail to transfer you to the Department of Corrections, and I wish you the best of luck.
Well, there we go. There we go, you guys. So that was insane. I think we called it, right? We did call it. 56% of you guys in our poll here did determine, let me get rid of this chat window here. Where is it? This one. There you go. There you go. So yes, 27%. Well, we had 27 votes. 55% said 25 years. So that was not surprising at all, and not surprising at all. So in case you guys are wondering, part of what they were saying in the trial was, what he was trying to argue is the capacity to appreciate the criminality of the conduct, was not there. And that could be done not because they're declared to be legally insane, but because they have mental problems that would limit their ability to understand the conduct. Maybe they were impaired, for example, so like evidence of alcohol might go into it as well. So that was quite interesting. So that's the capacity of it. I did kind of mention, they were talking about Florida statutes 921.0026, which does talk about which does talk about mitigating circumstances. So they have a laundry list of mitigating circumstances that can be taken into account when looking at a sentence and looking to see if that sentence should be reduced or not. And part of those would include, for example, if it's a plea deal and it was coerced, that would be one example. Another example would be they were an accomplice to the crime and they were a minor participant, so they were not the ones perpetrating the crime, which does not apply to Sarah Boone. Another one would be the capacity one, which we just discussed. The fourth one is the defendant requires a specialized treatment that is not related to substance abuse or physical disability. So again, that argument, I mean, because he was trying to say that this was all because of the PTSD that caused this, but we all know that, she also got tagged with being an alcoholic and she was drunk when this happened. So don't think that's gonna change very much for sure. Another mitigating circumstance that sometimes comes up is if the need for the restitution is, so high that it outweighs sending somebody to jail or to prison for a long period of time. So because we want to keep them working, we want to have them out and working and be able to pay the restitution, that would also be a factor as well. If they were under extreme duress when they committed the crime, because like somebody else was coercing them to do it, for example, that might go into that. If they were just responding because the victim was the offender, they were the ones that were initiating the attack, right? That would be taken into consideration by Florida courts as well. If the defendant cooperated with the state, provided testimony against somebody else, which I know, that was not here. Another one is the defense was committed in an unsophisticated manner and it was an isolated incident to which she showed remorse. But we know she did not show any type of remorse whatsoever. So that, really was not there. The unsophisticated one is probably to kind of say like, hey, like, she's not going to get away with this again. So it's okay to allow her to leave prison early. There's 4 more. The next one is the victim was too young, so they were a child. Looking to see if it was a non-violent felony, which this was not. The defendant was making a good faith effort to obtain or get medical assistance for an individual that's experiencing a drug-related overdose, which is not the case as well. So those are the mitigating circumstances are defined by Florida statute that would be taken into account. Sarah Boone did not meet any of these, even though her defense attorney tried so hard to push on it, because he was trying to say that the PTSD was an extreme incident, so there is no concerns of her going out and then harming the public. And then they were trying to say this was an isolated event that's not going to happen again. They were also trying to say she was a good person. But again, when she came to trial, when she was there at the hearing, she was her worst witness. In all truthfulness, I think she would have been better off not testifying, because everything that came out of her mouth was a blaming everybody. That does not show that she had remorse, which again, it's a required factor. It's a required factor in order for it to be a mitigating circumstance. You have to show remorse. And she did quite the opposite. What she ended up doing is she ended up just telling folks, this was on you. You did it. You did it. She went and started victim blaming immediately Jorge Torres. Jorge means George, by the way. That's why they keep using his name interchangeably. But she was blaming Jorge for it. Saying, I'm glad that this happened. That does not show remorse at all. Definitely not the best way to show remorse. Oh my God, this is absolutely bananas. I am glad she got life. I am very glad that she got life. I saw a question in chat. How would I have defended her? I think I would have gotten probably kicked out by her, because the way that I approach any type of hearing and trial, and particularly like if there is any type of wrongdoing and you know you did it, is we need to cut a deal, because you can get a better deal when you cut a deal, right? If in any type of case, in any type of lawsuit, most of the times you get certainty of what needs to be happening. You get certainty on that. You close the chapter on that, and then you can kind of move on from there. That becomes really, really important when it comes to litigation, buying that certainty, which she will not have. Because again, the jury can always flip-flop. You never know which way the jury's going to go. Juries are unpredictable. They are unpredictable, and that's the beauty of it in a way, right? They are unpredictable. As it is when you make a case in front of a judge, sometimes the rulings are unpredictable as well. Sometimes you just don't really know what's going to happen, and having that certainty goes a long way. If she would have taken the plea deal, she would have been out in 2 years with parole. But she did not take it. I bet she's kicking herself right now. 100%. So I would have pushed for the plea deal. I think that her defense attorneys did the best job that they could, considering the amount of crazy. A couple of things that I would have done differently is her attorneys tried to suppress the entire police interrogation, all 2-3 hours of it. I would have not done that. I would have gone for suppression of particular moments, because the problem would happen right before the trial happened. So like a week or so before the start of the trial, the defense attorneys filed a lot of motions, and one of the motions was to suppress. And when they had the hearing, they couldn't articulate why exactly they should suppress the police interrogation. So if they would have gone in with a scalpel and just said, we just want to cut this portion out so it doesn't go into trial, that would have been much better and efficient. That's one of the things that I would have done differently for sure. Another thing that would have done differently is her attorneys seemed very unprepared, and that probably was because they got into the case like 2 weeks before the trial date started, and that was really on them. So they said that they read her letter when she was requesting somebody to take her case, and they didn't think that she should go without a lawyer to represent her. Like I guess like you can see like based on the transcripts and the records of who goes in and out, and because they keep track of everything that she's doing, that she got into several screaming matches with her defense attorneys, her current defense attorneys. Because I think like they were really going down and letting her know, like, you're gonna get convicted no matter what. It's a matter of how many years you're going to be slammed for. And she had this belief that she was innocent, that she didn't do anything wrong, which is absolutely crazy that she would think that. So I think like they should have done better at that. I think that they should have really done more to try and fix the fact that she flip-flopped her testimony so much. I mean, basically what the defense attorney did at that point is he just had Sarah Boone go in and testify, and then have her testify about why she changed her mind and why she's testifying differently. And I felt like he just gonna let it out there. And, part of it too, the reason probably why that happened, I think like a lot of people were saying, well, that wasn't really great of the attorney to do, because as attorneys, you are there to help folks have access to the courts, right? You are there to be their voice. You are there to help them access the courts, which can get really complicated and complex. But the reason why he did it is because attorneys take an oath not to lie in court, period, right? I mean, we can make arguments. Yes, we make arguments left and right. If there is a sliver of an argument we can make, we will make that argument, right? But if they know she is lying, or they think she is lying, they can't elicit testimony about the lie, so they will just have her give her testimony, and that by itself is very telling. So I think that's probably why it came, why they just let her testify and they just let it go. And I think that was because they had an ethics responsibility to not lie to the court, and their hands were tied. So yes, they looked like they were struggling on that one. They looked like they didn't have a good handle of the reason why she flip-flopped her testimony. But I think that was because they had an ethics responsibility to not lie. I really think that's where it came from, for sure. That was crazy. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys for hanging out with me. This is the first Legally Sevvy stream. I'm so excited. I wanted to say thank you so much for all of you guys. We're up to, I believe, 58 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. I just want to say thank you so much for all of you. I really appreciate all of you guys for hanging out with me today. Please make sure to like this stream and leave a comment. This is a brand new channel, so I really need the help with the likes and the comments. I'm trying to get to 500 subs, and then I'll try to get to the amount of watch hours. So I will focus first on getting 500 subs, and then we'll focus on the watch hours. I will be making a lot more content in this channel talking about legal cases. And 62 subs. Oh, thank you. I have not refreshed. So thank you for that. So I will be making a lot of video content as well as live streams when it comes to trials and hearings. I'm so excited because there wasn't really another place for me to talk about it. So, and hopefully I'll get my new overlays for this channel. And as you guys probably noticed, I'm using my normal gaming overlays. But I think they worked. So thank you so much, everybody, for your support and your help. Much love to all of you, and I will talk to you guys later. Call Cthulhu tonight over at Moonskull, and a secret special stream happening this week other than Festivus. It's way better. I will announce it once it becomes solid and I can share the link, and you guys, your mind is gonna be blown when you figure it out. So I will talk to all of you later. Yes, and I will do the Law and Order sounds. Thank you, Nosaku. And by the way, if you guys are interested in being a mod for this stream, just let me know. So it doesn't all fall into Chrysanth and Smooth. So Nosaku, Warlock, or just let me know. Anybody else in the stream, if you are interested in helping me out, let me know. All right. Hopefully I'll get my overlay soon. But for now, this is the ending screen. Bye, everybody.